Welcome back to Sow, Grow and Cook on a cold and frosty November day. Today I'd like to talk about basic homesteading skills that you can learn wherever you live in order to live a more self-sufficient and resilient lifestyle. Come on, let's take a look. Homesteading skill number 1, first aid and basic life support. You don't need to be living out on a small holding to know these sorts of skills. Let's think about it. When my youngest son was about 3 years old, he was running around our back garden at the time, picking plums off our beautiful Victoria plum tree. They were very ripe and they were very juicy, and he'd obviously seen all the adults picking and eating them, so he thought he would have a go as well. It was a small tree and there were some low-hanging branches which he could reach. He just started gorging himself, and next thing you knew, he'd gone very quiet and you could see he'd stopped breathing, and the look of terror on his little face. Fortunately, my good friend was with me and she'd had first aid training, and she ran over, picked him up by the legs, tipped him upside down, slapped him on his back, and out popped the offending plum. She had the confidence and the quick-wittedness to kind of deal with the situation at the time. Had I had that training, I would have been able to deal with it as well. It's very simple to learn how to do, and thank goodness she was there. And yes, we still tease my son about that time, especially when we see him gorging his food. He's in his 30s now. Have you got the confidence to deal with things like this? You might do if you get a bit of basic training. Here in the UK, places like St. John's Ambulance, British Red Cross, the National Health Service, they all offer basic first aid skills training and basic life support training. Getting these sorts of skills and being confident using them could really make a difference in an emergency situation. And it's quite empowering to know that if you are in an isolated area and the emergency services can't get to you quickly, there are things that you can do. Number 2, food preservation. Learning all the different methods I think is quite important, but you don't have to learn everything at once. There are many, many different ways of preserving food. Let's take a look at some of them. Here I've got some onions that I harvested back in June. They were autumn sown onion sets, so they matured a lot more quickly than the spring sown ones. But some of them now are beginning to go soft and sprout. And if I leave them too long, they're going to begin to rot, and then I'll have to throw them out or put them in the compost heap. And I don't want to really waste a valuable resource like that. So I'm going to peel them all and chop them up, put them in a bag, and put them in the freezer, which means I'll have ready-to-use chopped onion, and I won't have wasted anything either. So here I've got some dehydrated apples, mushrooms, and chilies. And next to that, I've got some dried beans that I grew in the garden this summer, and some popcorn that I grew and dried. You can also ferment food. Here I've got a jar of red cabbage sauerkraut, which we've been dipping into. Very tasty. And of course you can ferment other things and make your own wine. Number 3, grow your own. Now I know that seems quite obvious and many of you are doing that already, but for those of you who've got tiny gardens or no garden at all, you can still try growing some microgreens or some pea shoots to put in salads, or even some salad greens that take 4 weeks to sort of get to harvesting stage. You can also grow herbs in pots. And if you've got a tiny garden outside and you've got some containers, empty pots, empty tubs, empty trugs, you can plant climbing beans and use the vertical space. Sheltered corner, a sunny area, you can grow some peppers or chilies. There's lots of things that you can grow if you've got limited space. And it's really good to get started and get confident growing things. The flavor of freshly harvested microgreens and little salads and pea shoots and freshly grown beans and tomatoes, they're just delicious. You cannot compare it with the stuff that you buy in the shops. And any practice is good practice. For those of you who live in town, consider renting an allotment if you've got allotments in your area. So consider trying to grow something regardless of where you live and what your circumstances are. It doesn't have to be very much, but it's a start.
Number 4, learn about the natural world around you.
I think this one's a really fun one. And it's something that is ongoing. I'm still learning about wild plants and trees and birds and insects and all sorts of things. But wherever you are, there will be trees, there will be plants growing, either in your neighborhoods or in a park or a short distance away in the countryside. If you can get out to it, learn to identify trees and shrubs, edible plants. One of my first earliest memories was picking wild blackberries and raspberries, looking for crab apples, getting stung by nettles, but then finding out later on you can actually eat nettle. I've got a video on making a wild garlic and nettle risotto. Foraging's a great skill to have. There's courses you can take. People do run courses on these things. There's also really well-made YouTube videos on hunting for wild foods. Always learn from an expert if you can. Cross-reference in books. Make sure you really do your research carefully. But these skills are so important and they're so enriching as well. And if you do ever make the move to the countryside, you'll have a bit of a head start and you'll learn so much more later on as well. Buy a book, borrow a book from a library. Use all the sources of information that you can get hold of. Talk to people who are experts if you know anybody. Go for walks with people. Join a group. Number 5, seed saving. So why do we save seeds? Sure, you can go buy them from a nice seed catalogue and pay £2 or £3 or dollars for 10 tomato seeds or whatever. But a lot of people forget about having no seeds during the pandemic, during the lockdown. There seemed to be a real shortage of vegetable flower seeds. Shops had shut down and people were posting seeds for sale on the internet for silly expensive prices. Saving your own is very economical and easy to do, and you eventually grow plants that have been adapted to your climate and growing conditions. And often you find if you learn to save seeds properly, the germination rate is really very good, often better than the commercial ones that you buy. So there's a lot of good reasons for learning how to save seeds. I belong to a seed library here in Wales, and we offer seed saving courses. Look online. There are books, there's online courses, there are lots of YouTube videos out there showing you how to save seeds. You're not going to be able to save every vegetable seed straight away. Some plants are biennial, which means they need sort of 2 years growth in order to reach maturity before you can harvest them. Some will cross-pollinate very easily, so you've got to learn how to isolate plants. Just make sure the seeds you're saving are not from hybrid plants, because you will not get plants that are true to type. You want open-pollinated, heirloom or heritage seed varieties. But there are some very basic, easy seeds to save, like tomatoes, beans, peas, certain herbs and things. Make a start. It's very empowering, and you will have certain things that you will never have to buy again. Number 6, carpentry and DIY skills. Having the skills and the confidence to put together simple, useful items, flat packs, chicken runs, benches, raised beds, is so important when you live on a small holding or a homestead. So get comfortable making simple objects. Learn about tools, learn how to use them, familiarize yourself with making objects. And don't forget to mend and repair objects as well. Why pay somebody else to do it when you can learn to do it yourself? Number 7, repurpose and upcycle older objects. Be creative before throwing things into landfill. Here we're using old water tanks to plant some tomatillo plants. And we found an old tractor tire, and it's now growing rhubarb in it. We've used some broken slates to fill in a muddy area of a chicken run, and the cat's using an old plastic box as her bed now. We're sprouting potatoes in these egg boxes. Try and think of all the different ways you can use up baling twine or pallets before you put them in the bin. There's so many different uses for things, and it's a fantastic skill to be creative when you live on a homestead. Turn it into a game and make it fun. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed listening to my favorite homesteading skills, and no doubt there's many more that I've forgotten to list. If you'd like to share some of your favorite skills that you think are important for being a good homesteader, please put them in the comment section below. Share them with us. I'd love to read them, and I'm sure others would as well. And once again, thank you very much for watching Sow, Grow and Cook. Don't forget to like and subscribe and press the little bell icon so you can be alerted when a new video comes out. Bye for now.